On the next episode of Making a Case, how feminism destroyed America. Trigger alert. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Making a Case. I am your gracious host, Dr. Jacob Isom, author, speaker, educator, entrepreneur. For those of you that don't know me, we started making the case a few months back. We put into fruition just like a month or so ago. So we're here rocking on YouTube. If you haven't checked out the last 4 episodes, because this is episode 5. Make sure you do so. Make sure you subscribe, you like the video, you hit the bell so you know when new videos drop, and rock with your boy. All right. So before we get into it, we got a couple of channel norms. 1, we attack points. We don't attack people. And 2, we don't do the derogatory cussing and all that. We professional over here. We get enough of that in the YouTube space. And speaking on that, let me touch on that real quick before I get into this episode. All right. Now, there are a lot of reaction channels, and shout out to those creators, right? Not taking nothing from them. There are a lot of things that's going on in YouTube land, particularly Black YouTube creators, where there's a lot of talking about people, going back and forth, a lot of negativity, right? One thing that I don't want to do is I don't want to participate in that. Okay. I want to be a beacon of hope, a beacon of light. I want to speak positive and give positive energy out there in the YouTube universe. All right. So you won't see that over here. I get it. Clicks, likes, people like drama. I get that. But hopefully you rock with me and you respect me and you come over here and watch the content because I'm giving you great content. I only want to focus on the content. All right. I know I went on a diatribe. So let's get into the episode. All right. So, episode number 5, how feminism destroyed America. Let's get into my opening statement. Now, I think most, if not all, I would say all of us would agree that having equitable rights, and I say equitable intentionally because my stance is there's no such thing as equality. There has never been equality between the sexes, between the races, between religions, etc. Okay. You point out to me a time period in American history or world history where there's been equality. You can't show me. All right. Now, that's another topic for another video. And trust me, that video is coming. But I want to stick to the subject. So I think we all would agree that we want a society where things is fair, where things is equitable. But we do understand that life is not fair. I think we all understand that. But making sure that everybody at least get an opportunity and a chance of achieving is what everybody wants, right? I don't think nobody would deny that. So the reason why I'm going to be making my case on feminism destroying America, because it has gotten to a point where it's no longer about making sure that women get certain rights. All right. It's getting to a point where it's just like a landslide of I want everything, even as men, what you doing is wrong and double standards and wrong. So it didn't get to a point where it just didn't get out of hand and out of control. Okay. So before I really go into my 3 pieces of evidence that I have for you today, I want to look at the 3 waves of feminism. Now, the article I want to read to you, which is part of my opening statement, is an article on the 4 ways of feminism. Now, this person who wrote this article believed that there are 4 ways of feminism. Now, I don't agree necessarily, but I'm gonna get into that once I read it to you. So Before we get into the evidence, I want to read this article to you. And for those of you that are not familiar with the three different waves, we're going to get into that. All right. So, like I said, this is part of my opening statement. I want to read to you this article because I thought it would help set the stage and set the scene for my three pieces of evidence. So, as you can see, the article we're about to read is from Pacific University of Oregon. This was written by a young lady by the name of Martha Rampton. So, it's titled Four Ways of Feminism. Once again, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I really want to get into the three ways, and I also want to read to you what she considers to be the fourth wave of feminism. All right, so let's get into it real quick. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, get to where I want. All right. The first wave of feminism took place in the late 19th and earlier 20th centuries, emerging out of the environment of urban industrialism and liberal socialist politics. The goal of this wave was to open up opportunities for women with a focus on suffrage. For those of you who don't know what suffrage means the right to vote. The wave formally began at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 when 300 men and women rallied to the cause of equality for women. Now, you see that men and women involved. It's no different than the civil rights movement. Well, white people were involved. It's no different than the abolitionist movement. White people were involved. So anytime there is a push and a fight for more rights, they're always going to be the opposite sex or the opposite race there to help. That's documented throughout history. Let's continue. The wave formally began at Seneca Falls Convention. Sorry, I already read that. Elizabeth Cady Stanton drafted the Seneca Falls Declaration outlining the new movement's ideology and political strategy. In its earlier stages, feminism was interrelated with the temperance and abolitionist movement and gave voice to now famous activists like the African American Sojourner Truth, who demanded, "Ain't I a woman?" Victorian America saw women acting in very unladylike ways, public speaking, demonstrating stints in jail, which challenged the cult of domesticity. Discussions about the vote and women's participating in politics led to examination of the difference between men and women as they were then viewed. Some claimed that women were morally superior to men, and so their presence in the civic sphere would improve public behavior in the political process. Now, I wonder who was making that claim that women was morally superior to men, right? So we have a case where we see that women, like I said, it began to become a situation where there was not just a fight for rights, but there's a fight for superiority, right? Like somebody has to best the other. And I think this is the problem with feminism. Let's read on. The second wave began in the 1960s and continued into the 1990s. This wave folded in the context of the anti-war and civil rights movement and a growing self-consciousness of a variety of minority groups around the world. The new left was on the rise, and the voice of the second wave was increasingly radical. In this phase, sexuality and reproduction rights were dominant issues. Much of the movement's energy was focused on the passing of the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution, guaranteed social equality regardless of sex. So this is when we see the sexual revolution, which really hit. It took place in the 1970s. Like, this is where we see a woman saying, I can sleep with who I want to. Now, in 2024 today, do you not see the remnants of this? And the effect that we see that it has on women? The promiscuity, OnlyFans, pornography, the list goes on and on. This is hurting us. Let me continue. The phase began with protests against the Miss America pageant in Atlantic City. I'm going to skip that, sorry. Because the second wave of feminism found voice amid so many other social media, it was easily marginalized and viewed as less pressing than, for example, Black Power or efforts to end the war in Vietnam. Feminists reacted by forming women-only organizations such as NOW and consciousness-raising groups. In publications like The Bitch Manifesto and Sisterhood is Powerful, feminists advocated for their place in the sun. The second wave was increasingly theoretical, based on the fusion of neo-Marxism and psychoanalytical theory, and began to associate the subjugation of women with broader critiques of patriarchy, capitalism, normative heterosexuality, and a woman's role as wife and sex and gender were differentiated, the former being biological and the later a social construct that varies culture to culture and over time, which I agree with. Sex is biological, gender is a social construct, much like race. Whereas the first wave of feminism was generally propelled by middle class, Western, cisgender white women, the second phase drew in women of color and developing nations, seeking sisterhood and solidarity. I mentioned in a previous video about protecting the sisterhood and why women don't hold other women accountable. You see how these topics correlate to each other. Claiming women's struggle is a class struggle. Feminists spoke of women as a social class and coined phrases such as the personal is political and identity politics in an effort to demonstrate that race, class, and gender oppression are all related. They initiated a concentrated effort to rid society top to bottom of sexism, from children cartoons to the highest level of government. Let's get to the third wave. The third wave of feminism began in the mid-90s and was informed by post-colonial and postmodern thinking. In this phase, many constructs were destabilized, including the notion of universal womanhood, body, gender, sexuality, and heteronormativity. An aspect of third wave feminism that mystified the mothers of the early feminist movement was a readoption by young feminists of very lipstick, high heels, and cleavage proudly exposed by low-cut necklines that the first two phases of the movement identified with male oppression. Pink Floyd expressed this new position where she said that it's possible to have a push-up bra and a brain at the same time. So what we see with the third wave of feminism is that, once again, it kind of continued on the sexual revolution, that women saying, you know what, I can be sexual and sexy and still be smart. But there's an issue with that. I agree. Yes, you can. But not to the point where you have to sexualize yourself and then get mad at men when all we thinking about is sex, or look at you as a sexual object. So a very famous skit by Dave Chappelle said, you can't be wearing a whore's outfit and then not expect me to treat you like a whore. So the feminists, as we see from the first wave to the second wave to the third wave, the feminine movement started to move away from voting rights, started to move away from protecting reproductive rights, and it started getting to something that was more subjective, something that wasn't speaking to Christian lens, right? We are a Christian nation. Let's get to the fourth wave, or what she says is the fourth wave. The fourth wave feminism is still a captivating silhouette. A writer for Elle magazine recently interviewed me about the waves of feminism and asked if the second and third waves may have failed or dialed down because the social and economic gain had been mostly sparkle, little substance, and whether at some point women substitute equal rights for career in the atomic self. I replied that the second wave of feminism ought not be characterized as having failed, nor was glitter all that it generated. Quite the contrary. Many goals of the second wave were met. More women in position of leadership in higher education, business, and politics, abortion rights, access to the pill that increased women's control over their bodies, more expression, acceptance of female sexuality, which I agree with. Let me get to what she really talking about. Here we go. The emerging fourth wave are not just reincarnation of second wave grandmother. They bring to the discussion important perspectives to talk about third wave feminism. They speak in turn into sexuality, whereby women's suppression can only fully be understood in the context of the marginalization of other groups and gender. Feminism is a part of a larger continent of oppression along racism, ageism, classism, ableism, and sexual orientation. No ism to go with that. On the third wave, bequest is the importance of inclusion and acceptance of the sexualized human body as non-threatening and the role the internet can play in the gender-bending and 11 hierarchies. The beauty of the fourth wave is that there is a place in it for all together. The academic and theoretical apparatus is extensive and well-honed in the academy, ready to support a new broad-based activism in the home, in the workplace, in the sphere of social media, and in the streets. Now, I'm going to stop right there, because she's not really telling us what the fourth wave is about. She's just telling us it's a continuation of the second and third wave, and it's all encompassing, and we're pretty much going on with the same ideology of the second and third wave. What I would consider fourth wave feminism, if I was subscribed to that ideology, I would consider it the lambasting, as I mentioned, double standards, the bringing back traditional values, even though women still want to be modern women. So it's kind of like the mixing traditionalism and modernism. Okay, so women nowadays still feel like there's a fight to be had, and the fight to be had is I can be sexual, I can do everything I want to, and you still must treat me as such, as a lady. And therein lies the problem. Okay, you can't just do anything you want to do and not still be held accountable. All right. Now, this is a great segue into my first piece of evidence. Let's get into it. So, for my first piece of evidence, evidence number one, or how I think feminism destroyed America, competition. So, what I've experienced personally, and I think a lot of other men have experienced, and what we hear a lot, not just on YouTube, but on podcasts and things of that nature, we hear women or we see women wanting to compete with men. I mentioned in another video that I don't think, and this is from my personal experience, I'm not in competition with women. I don't see women as competition. I see other men as competition. It's no different in sports, right? Women compete against other women. Women don't compete against men. So I think a lot of men have that same mentality when it just comes in general. I had a personal relationship where I felt like somebody was trying to compete with me. And to be honest with you, there was no competition, but for the simple fact that I didn't think that person was really happy for my success. So it is what it is. So this video that I want to show you is kind of touching on that competition piece from a very popular YouTuber by the name of Patrick David. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen it if you on YouTube like I am. And so I want to play this video for you real quick, and then we can discuss it after.
I wanted to.
All right. So as you can see with the video, there was a woman, a very successful woman, that pretty much told an audience full of people that she believed into the myth and the ideology of the feminism movement that we compete against men, we don't need men, we're better off without them. So she got to a point where she realized at a very older age that, you know what, this was all of a load of crap. Okay. And unfortunately, that is what we're seeing from a lot of women nowadays. We're seeing that it's almost too late for them. They to realize that, you know what, that this whole time I believe in that I should be in competition with a man, that a man is the enemy. And that's the problem with feminism. And that's how it's destroying America. So it is literally turning women against men when the fight was only supposed to be is to gain more rights, gain quote unquote equal rights, even though you already know my case on that. So like I said, we've moved totally away from fighting for rights. It's kind of like the hatred of men. It's the competition. It's the I see men as a necessary evil that what we're seeing with modern women nowadays. So that competition piece and that mentality of that I want to do better than you and be better than you. You can't tell me what to do. That mentality is destroying women and destroying relationships. All right. Let's get into evidence number two. All right. So, my piece of evidence number two, how feminism has destroyed America because of women focus on education and career. I think the proof is in the pudding, right? This is not just a race thing, even though I believe that Black women tend to focus more on career and being away from men and saying that they don't need a man. You'll hear that a lot from Black women, but I think it's women overall. Now, in a lot of cases, this is primarily in the West, right? Feminism is a first world problem. You don't really deal with feminism when you go outside of the Western world. But in the Western world, particularly here in the United States, feminism is a huge issue with women being told and raised and trained, hey, go to school, get your degrees. All right. Focus on your purpose, your career, focus on your bag, as we say. So, this idea of us focusing, or I should say, women focusing on going to school, it has done a major disservice to the family. So, I pulled up an actual thesis by a young lady by the name of Brown Hamilton. And the title of this thesis is How Modern Feminism Had Destroyed American Society. So they go into various different topics. They do break down the three different waves of feminism, but they also go into how the focus of education and the focus of career has broken down the modern family. So let's get into it. I'm going to be scrolling a little bit because I want to get to the definition of feminism that they'll be using to make their case. And it's always important to start with a definition. All right. So their definition is feminism is not a one size fits all issue, and thus I owe it to the reader to set forth how I will be defining feminism from this point forward. The feminism I attack in this thesis I define as a perspective that neither gender, both, but especially women, needs a family nor spouse for ultimate happiness, and that the most notable goal for individual is the pursuit of career and educational advancement. It could also be described as a defense of the nuclear family and traditional values, much of which was corrupted by the rise of the aforementioned second wave of feminism, as will thus be further demonstrated. So, the feminism that this individual is talking about is pretty much the breakdown of the modern family by focusing on educational attainment and career. All right. So, let's get into some other aspects that they break down. The trend of late marriage. Now, in the previous video, I mentioned and I showed you the stats on when most women are getting married, which is now is like mid 30s. Okay. Which means that that's when a lot of these women are having babies. If you are of the religious aspect and you believe in marrying before you carry, right? And even if you're not religious, I think that's just the proper way to go. So one of the foremost ways that feminism impact on society has been visible is in regards to the trend of late marriage. In 1970, as second wave feminism was just beginning to take root in society, the median age of marriage was 23 for men, 20.8 for women. Nearly half a century later, the median age for marriage had risen to 29.5 for men and 27.4 for women. The dating process is taking much longer as well. This was observed in 2018 by eHarmony, one of America's most popular online dating sites. Young adults not only marrying and having children later in life than previous generations, but taking more time to get to know each other before they tie the knot. Indeed, some spend the better part of a decade as friends or romantic partners before marrying. The report found that couples from ages 25 to 34 knew each other for an average of 6.5 years before marrying. However, it's not only the age of marriage that has been affected, but the entire motivation to marry altogether. A 2016 study by the Pew Research Center found that in the 1950s, over 75% of people were married. Today, the number is close to 50%. Marriage, simply put, does not seem to be a priority for the coming generation, or at least that is what the numbers would suggest. So I've actually asked young people, because of course, I teach young people, like, do you want to get married? And you'll be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be surprised that they would tell me no. And I'll be like, well, do you want to have kids? And they'd be like, yes. And so I'll be like, okay, so you're telling me you want to have kids, but you don't want to get married. Young people nowadays do not see marriage as an option. They see marriage as a trap. They see marriage as locking you down. Like, the thought of being with somebody for the rest of your life scares young people. And I'm not saying it shouldn't, but we have to understand there's a reason why we want to marry before we have kids. And young people are not caring. They just saying that, well, I definitely want to have kids to continue my legacy, but I don't want marriage. And there's reasons why, and we'll get to some of that. But I want to scroll down. Having kids late. Just as the average age of first marriage has steadily risen, likewise has the age of the first childbearing. Once again, the rise can be seen to very much parallel the introduction of feminist ideologies into the nation. In 1972, when the movement was in its infancy, the average age of first-time mothers was 21 years old and has now risen to 26. For father, it has risen 4 years from 27 to 31. The rise has become even starker when education is taken into account, as women with college degree have children 7 years later than those who did not attend. This should not come as a surprise, as it had already been demonstrated that the lure of a university had led more and more youth away from marriage. Children, and frankly, all other forms of responsibility go hand in hand. The way this phenomenon described in modern society is nothing short than frightening. The joy of having children has become increasing compared to other life accomplishments, such as attaining a postgraduate degree. as if such vastly unequal forms of happiness are even worthy of being mentioned in the same sentence. So the fact that a lot of women are finding happiness by going into the workforce versus staying at home and having kids, whether they're a stay-at-home mother or whether they stay for a few years and then go back to the workforce, they have been told due to the feminist movement that happiness should be out in the workforce, work with somebody. Also, in a previous video, I showed you the numbers when it comes to after World War II, the number of women that now is in the workforce. Like, it's staggering. And a lot of this is due to the first, second, and third wave of feminism. Excuse me, I forgot to put my phone on record. Let's go down the cult of college. While it has already been clearly demonstrated that college increase in importance to the mainstream society has been a conduit for the rising age of marriage and childbearing, the destruction brought about by higher education itself must be examined and exposed. In our modern society, college is viewed by many as absolutely necessary for career success and indeed life success. Just consider modern Democrats' call for free college tuition. This way of thinking is reflected in college enrollment across America, which since 1970 has increased nearly threefold, from 7.4 million enrolled to 19.6 million enrolled. And of course, most of that women. Why is this so dangerous? University attendance delays marriage, delays childbearing, and for the most in society has created a cult-like attitude of imaginary dependency. A Pew Research study based on mothers aged 40 to 50 found among that those who did not pursue a college degree, 84% were mothers before the age of 30. On the other end of the spectrum, those who received a postgraduate degree only number 46 before 30. Similarly, the U.S. Census Bureau found in 2010 that men and women with a high school diploma who did not pursue a college degree got married at 28 and 25, respectively. Those who did not complete that degree were married at 29.9 and 28.4, respectively. So, what we're seeing is for those people who go to college and get a degree, marriage is delayed, having children is delayed. And like I said, most of the women, I think at this point, it's 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 of women outnumber men that's going to college. So this is having a dire effect on our society. And now what we're witnessing that women who are getting older and now they're saying, I want kids. I'm established. I get the money I want. My ego has been stroked. Now I want to find a husband. And at this point, I'm not saying it's too late, but it's going to be very, very difficult because after you had that baby, you still going to want to go right back into that workforce because now you get all these student loans that you got to help pay for. So the idea of college, the idea that college affects when marriages are happening, and babies are happening, has destroyed the modern family. Let's get into our last piece of evidence. So for my third piece of evidence for how feminism destroyed America, it's quite simply, it has ruined the masculine and feminine roles in a family, which actually piggybacks off of my last piece of evidence, which is the focus on education and career ruining a family. Now it also has ruined the whole idea of masculine and feminine roles. Okay. So this article that I have for you is actually from the Washington Times, and it's titled How Feminists and Feminism Had Destroyed Masculine and Feminine Roles. Very short read, so let's get into it. All right. I regret not getting married when I was young. More specifically, I wish I had focused on the marriage factor, asking myself what I wanted more, a career or family. So that is the struggle a lot of time for women, okay? Because a lot of time what you're seeing is women having a choice between one or the other. Now, are some women doing both? Some women having babies at an early age, still going to school, still pursuing a career, still having a husband? Yes. But for some reason, in a lot of women mind, and of course, this is due to the feminist movement, that a lot of women feel like they can't totally invest themselves into their career when they have a child and a husband. Okay. But there are women that are doing such and doing it at a high level. Like my mother's generation, where gender roles were uniquely defined and respected in America, The 1960s feminist movement and the offspring of liberalism has led to the death of masculinity in America today. Gender roles have eroded to non-existent. We always speak of a time where men knew their place, women knew their place. It's not a disrespectful thing to say a man has a role and a woman has a role. The sad thing about it is most women still feel like they want a traditional man. They want a man to take out the trash. They want a man to protect and provide and do traditional roles while not fulfilling their traditional role. Let's keep reading. Scroll down. Starting in elementary school, teachers are drowning boys in sensitivity, turning men into little sissies. They are making a toxic environment for boys. Primary education does everything in its power to turn boys into neuters, asserts anti-feminist Pagala in a recent interview. She absolutely correct. These same little boys grow into adults who suppress their manhood to live in a politically correct prison with no models of manhood as Pagala. Now, I do agree that, and a lot of people have been saying that, well, men are more feminine, women are more masculine. And I do see that myself as well. So, but as the article states, we're living in a politically correct time where it's like it's no longer feasible to be a man anymore because they're just going to discredit you, call you a woman basher, call you a misogynist. Like, so that's why it's very few men speaking out on YouTube, speaking out on podcasts or anything like that. Now, we're seeing a lot more, but there's not as many men that feel free to speak freely their ideas about feminism or things of that nature. Now, I feel comfortable because I want to bring to you what other people are saying and I want to bring the facts to you. All right. So anything that I'm saying, you could definitely challenge, leave comments, or do anything as a like, but I'm only presenting to you information that I'm finding. All right. Let's keep on. Today's modern man is afraid to tell a female colleague she looks pretty because he could be sued for sexual harassment. Now, the Me Too movement, that's a whole, I wouldn't agree. I think the Me Too movement is a whole separate issue, even though it could be tied into the feminist movement, but I think it's a whole separate issue. Just as the politically correct crowd has succeeded in turning America into a godless nation where Christians like Duck Dynasty and Starfield Robinson are condemned for talking about their belief, America is also becoming a manless nation. Now, so the idea of gender roles have been attacked, and it's been attacked for a very long time now. So even though men in the private sphere are doing the things they always done, publicly, men are being shamed. Women are saying, you know what? You should do the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and the nurturing too. You could do this too. So I think this is where this article gets at when it says it's turning men into, well, America's becoming a manless nation. Okay. So we're seeing the roles, and in a previous video, I showed a video of a woman saying, you know what? No, I don't feel like I want to do those roles. But men saying, yeah, I believe men should do this. So the feminist movement has been attacking what is quote unquote considered feminine roles. So nowadays, women consider their roles, they feel like they shouldn't be doing them because they're out in the workforce. Once again, all these pieces of evidence tie into each other. All right. Let's get into my closing statement. So, the real question is, where do we go from here? If we are truly in the fourth wave of feminism, which I would assert that the fourth wave of feminism is more so about a gender war. What I see on social media, on YouTube, is men bashing women and women bashing men. This is what I see every day, all day. We're at a point where we are in times where there are more single people than ever before. The divorce rate is just steady climbing. Most people don't want to even get married. We have the hookup culture is real. We have more situationships. Like, so we're at a time where if there is a fourth wave of feminism, what is it necessarily doing and how is it helping? Because The whole idea of feminism destroying America is that it only benefits one group of people or one gender. So essentially, when there is one gender that's trying to benefit from things, that necessarily can mean that the other gender will be suffering. So what we've seen for the last 40, 50, we can even say 60 years is we've been seeing our society suffering, our families suffering, gender roles suffering from the whole ideology of women need this, women need that. So where do we go from here? Because I don't see a peaceful outcome where it's equitable for both men and women. And I think the whole idea of saying equality of this and equality of that, the whole term equality has destroyed things. Equality is not a goal that will ever be maintained. Now, can we hold people accountable so we live in a just and equitable society? Yes. But equality is not it. We will never have it. We will never have it because we never had it. So that's my closing statement, man. Once again, please comment. If you got any suggestions for any topics you would like for me to make a case on, please do so. Make sure you go get the merch. Okay, these two of my favorites. Make sure you pick up the books. All right. I'll leave the links in the description. As always, I'm you, you are me. Love always, love eternal. We just made that case, baby. All right. The worst thing you do is lie to yourself. Peace. I'm out.